Good evening and welcome. We're stealing from The Rest is Politics and we're calling it an emergency podcast, even though it's like 2 days late. Yeah, but we've been quite busy this week. So we're starting off with Martin and I. Alex is just leaving work in London and is running around. I think she's on the tube at King's Cross trying to find a cafe she can sit in, as you do on a Friday night in London.
That'd be fun.
That's a normal thing to do. And even less believably, is David is pumping iron in the gym. Yeah, and so we're going to see him come back all sweaty and all pumped up if we're lucky. But one of the reasons we've been busy this week is because one of us stood in a by-election yesterday, wasn't it?
It was yesterday, yeah.
How did that go? Are we calling you Councillor Martin Curtis yet? Or not?
We're not calling me Councillor Martin Curtis, not by a long way. No, I came third. I was third as an independent, third against quite a very, very active Conservative, very, very active Conservative campaign and an active Reform campaign. And it was a creditable third. I think about 13-14% of the vote. Which I think that compares with somewhere around about what you got as in your parliamentary.
There's no need to remind me about that. That's a bit like I was going to try and be kind to you about your.
Well, I'm just saying I've done okay, and then I'm realising I did the same.
I did get however much you need to get your deposit back. I got about 4 more votes.
Yeah. So I mean, but active campaign. The main thing for me, the reason I stand, I there's always an off chance that I'll hit the right buttons for people, and and I'll get elected. But it's a hard thing to do because a lot of people are very sold on who they vote even before by-elections declared. And so part of it is about making an impact, and I definitely did that. Through the campaign. I know that because there was a couple of things you could see them react to. And I said a few things last night that had an impact as well, which is fine. The count was reasonably enough, to be fair. It was all very friendly. Got to chat to, 2 out of the other 3 candidates. I did chat to the Reform candidate, who seemed a nice enough chap when we bumped into each other delivering leaflets. But I chatted to the others quite a lot last night, got a few insights into a few things that interested me. But I was obviously asked to say a few words after my glorious loss. And I said a few things same things I've been repeating time and again.
Where was the count? Who was watching you do your speech?
So it's at the Manor Leisure Centre in Whittlesea, and basically all the Conservative activists in Whittlesea were there. So the normal Chris Bowden was there, Steve Tierney, Sam Hoy, Dean Laws. And on a personal level, I get on with all of them. Although I suspect Chris Bowden's a bit annoyed with me at the moment because I also had a go at him about his speech at the Combined Authority where they agreed the local growth board. The local growth plan. I basically pointed out I did this on my blog. I pointed out that a bit blunt about it. Chris spoke for 2 minutes, didn't mention or refer to Fenland or Whittlesea once, when every other leader and every other councillor that was there referred to their own area. And actually, the representative from Peterborough talked more about Fenland than Chris did. And it sort of reflects my views about the fact that there's very little drive and very little ambition around for Whittlesea, which is what I talked about yesterday. And I also talked about community facilities, because we've had a big issue with the Manor Leisure Centre. One of the buildings is going to get knocked down. They're going through consultation on it at the moment. And it's probably the right thing to do. But one of the organisations that's going to suffer from that is Whittlesea's Food Bank, which has its premises there. And when they wrote to the council and asked the council whether they'd find a home for them, the council basically ripped back and said, "We can't guarantee you a home." And they've been scrabbling around. They may, right at the last minute, they may have actually found something. I don't know. But what I basically said was, Whittlesea's got a great community, but what does it say about our lack of community facilities, that we're struggling around trying to find a home for our food bank? Yeah. But also, what does it say about our lack of community facilities communities that we, that they had to have a polling station for this by-election in a house, actually in a garage next to somebody's house.
That's really unusual, isn't it? That's really unusual.
Absolutely. And, it worked and everything else, but it's not something I would want to do. And anyway, somewhere from the background came this, this noise to the effect that the reason we did it was because the the Conservative club wasn't available because it had a funeral on. And I didn't reply to it. It was basically a bit of a heckle, but that's fine. And actually, I'm not convinced that a Conservative club is the right place for a polling station anyway.
I agree. And having said that before, it's like having, I've always feel a bit uncomfortable because of my reputation amongst Conservatives going into Conservative clubs. I've been in a few times, and to be fair to them, they've always been very welcoming. Yeah, the beer's very cheap, isn't it? Which is always quite good. You can't drink on polling day, I don't think. And they've always taken the piss out of me. But it still doesn't feel like the right place to do it. So you finished third, in fourth place. You beat the Labour candidate. Yeah. Did she turn up to the count?
Say again.
Did she turn up to the count?
Yeah, the Labour candidate turned up for the count. She was very nice. I had a good chat with her and some of her colleagues as well, actually, and her 17-year-old daughter who was there observing democracy, who was lovely as well. From that, and I had a chat with all the Conservatives. My son had a chat with a few of them as well because he turned up for the count as well. But my son's not 17. He's quite a bit older than that. He's in his 30s. I was 7 when I had my son, by the way. I was
going to say you don't look old enough, but that would be completely out of line. So I'm not
but yeah, and it was, they always are counts. By and large, they're kept quite nice. There was a few people expressed a bit of disappointment because Ryan Coogan was there, but when he realised that Reform weren't going to win, he left. The other guys hung around, it was good enough, and it was quite a challenging election campaign. Turnout was 27%, which for
a Thursday night in Whittlesea.
Yeah, absolutely, and that reflects the amount of effort that went into. One of the Conservatives was telling me that some places in Whittlesea had up to 11 leaflets.
11, so hard fought then.
Yeah. I'm a few questions about that, because when I've experienced that amount of leaflet delivery, when I've helped out at by-elections, parliamentary by-elections in the past, and they're just delivering leaflet after leaflet after leaflet, and this real intense political activity, and people get turned off by it.
Yeah, I agree. So we had that in general election here, the Lib Dems. Out loads and loads, like an order of magnitude leaflets more than anybody else. I've subsequently got called out on breaching the expenditure guidelines by a large amount, and then nothing ever happens about that. So before we move on to the LGR stuff, though, it is quite an interesting result, isn't it? Because in the county council elections, the Tories or the Conservatives got their arses handed to them, didn't they? In Fenland, absolutely, and Reform really were on a big one, weren't they? Not in Whittlesea, because I think Chris Bowden got in. Is he your?
Yeah, he is. It's basically a part. This is a part of Chris Bowden's county council division. From that perspective, the Conservatives were sort of on the front. What I hoped was I'd be able to pull votes off both the Conservatives and from Reform, but it just didn't happen. I did pull some, obviously, and the feedback I was getting through the campaign was fantastic.
Sally Howe saying still doesn't beat Lib Dems as an extra MP. No, it doesn't, because I've just moved house recently, and I've still got boxes full of their literature, which I was trying to keep, but I've actually thrown down the tip. So here is just in time for the LGR debate is Councillor Alex Booler. Alex, where are you? Are you actually in a tube station? It looks like it.
Hello, I'm not sure if this will work. Can you hear me okay? I'm at King's Cross Station. Okay, great.
Where are you?
I'm at King's Cross Station because I can't get home on time. I had a full-on day in London. But I still joined you.
This podcast is called Coffee, Buses and Politics, but you're actually live from a chief. You look like a BBC roving reporter. You do. It's really quite good. So I'm very impressed with that. Well done for getting on.
Yes, it is live reporting on option A and a very fun debate. So that's great.
If only you could have got the train to Peterborough, it would have been a more authentic location for the report. So just in time for you to get back there. And I think David is probably about 5 minutes away now, still pumping iron in the gym, just doing the last few reps. So this Thursday was probably one of the most interesting and observed county council debates. Well, so as long as I've been involved in politics as well, because this was the day on which the county council decided on its preference, despite what other people have said subsequently, for local government reorganisation. And so I guess the way that it happened, Alex, is that you had all of the options on the table and you got to choose to vote between them, didn't you? Is that how it happened?
No, I wish that's how the debate would have happened, but unfortunately, what we got presented was whether to put forward option A to government or not put option A to government. So, of course, I voted against for a variety of reasons, partly because I don't think option A is justifiable for Huntingdonshire, but also because I think I can't really have an informed choice as to what to put forward to government if I don't see the business cases for all the options that can be viable. And I think, of course, in the debate, there was this argument like, oh, we have to put something forward. No, you don't have to put something forward so early. Initially, we had the council meeting. It was supposed to happen in November. They brought it forward to October. Obviously, you have less data than you have in November. Maybe after some business cases will have been done. And I suspect the reason it was brought forward in October is to prevent the case where district council meetings would have happened before the county council meeting, and you would have identified certain colleagues who voted for option C or option B in district councils and then went to county and voted for option A. So I think politically, it was a move politically, and I have been against either way.
I think it's a deliberate move politically, because you'd hope that in something of this magnitude, people would make their decisions based on all data available, And
can we just go back a step? Before we talk about that,
I'm not sure if you heard any of that because
there's a debate to be had about the approach that the county council took, which I have a bit of a problem with. This notion that the county council just say you're going to vote on option A, and this is a county council run by the Liberal Democrats who were at the forefront 10 years ago, to be fair, 11 years ago, of the campaign to move towards a committee system. And with this, they seem to have bypassed all of that and just said it's option A or nothing. And I have a bit of a problem with that.
And that influenced some of the debate. So basically the voting was, that the only people who voted yes for option A were all of the Liberal Democrats, with the exception of one, who is my friend Anna Brandnam, who did an excellent speech and abstained, against the whip, which I think is, of somebody of Anna's caliber, probably not a brave decision. But for the rest of us, that's a difficult thing to do, if you want to stand in the whip. And so I'm, immensely proud of what Anna did, and she did a brilliant speech as well. It's worth checking out. And then Tom Sanderson, independent deputy chair, also in the administration, also voted for it. The other independent in the administration, Julie Kerr, voted against, and so against the whip. And I understand that the independents were whipped as well. So it was definitely a whipped vote. And part of the debate, or part of the reason that the Lib Dems were using justifying it, is they were voting to keep option A on the table. And if they hadn't voted through, then option A wouldn't have stayed on the table or wouldn't take part in the government's decision making downstream. Now that's a really, really bad argument, isn't it? Yeah, and lots of people, especially some of the St Neots councillors, were arguing that even though option A wasn't their favoured option, and some of them are saying that none of the options are good options, they were voting for option A anyway, so it would stay on the table. And basically the reason for doing that was so that East Cambs wouldn't miss out. Now, I understand this is probably a controversial decision only in Huntingdonshire and maybe in parts of East Cambs as well, because Huntingdonshire is as a consequence of this looks increasingly likely to be in a unitary council with Fenland and Peterborough. Yeah, and if you know, there's been lots of talk on social media, we've done lots of polls, and almost nobody in St Neots is in favour of joining up with Fenland and Peterborough. Yeah, it might happen, and we'll make the best of it, but it's a really, really, really strange decision. Well, I can understand why he did it. So for South Cambs and Cambridge City, it makes no difference probably because they're always going to be together. For most people in East Cambs, it's probably quite nice because they, you know, hopefully for them get to be part of the little Cambridge bubble. But for Huntingdonshire, which is a bigger, much more populous area, it feels like we're being cast aside by our own councillors, and I find that incredibly disappointing.
I find it a bit. I wish they'd done it a little bit differently, to be honest. I've put up a couple of posts about your speech, Alex, which I don't know if you saw, but a lot of and I thought your speech was excellent as well.
As did I. It was a brilliant speech, but there were lots of brilliant speeches.
Yeah.
And apart from the Lib Dems, the whole chamber was unified in opposition to this, in opposition to the way it was put forward. And you know, strangely, I had for part of the debate, I ended up being a subject of part of the debate because I think Ross Martin read out one of my Facebook comments. So at the start of the debate, the St Neots councillors, Liberal Democrat councillors, tried to make an amendment. That basically said we disagree with the process, but we're gonna vote for option A anyway, which I think was bizarre. And Ross Martin read out a comment by me just saying that those were weasel words and don't change anything. And then that became part of the debate. So we had Alicia Massini agreeing with me. And then one of the Liberal Democrats, I think the Brampton councillor, said that the current Liberal Democrat councillor is more intelligent and more more intelligent than the current. More intelligent.
I have seen that, Stephen, and I thought that would have been a point of order, but at that point of the debate, we were so fed up that we didn't raise it.
The person who jumped to my defence, bizarrely, is Chris Bowden. Yeah, you know, and I like Chris. He's a nice guy, isn't he? And he's a decent person as well. But you have the Conservatives jumping to my defence in a debate which I'm not even involved in, which is bonkers as well. So. So he said the new county councillor is more intelligent and less immature. Now, 50% and that's true. I am quite immature, so I'll take that one. I'm not sure about intelligent though.
Yeah, so there's also a comment from Kerry Walsh, which says that I'll put it up there, but I felt our councillors dumped on us for East Cambs re-keeping option A. It was so disappointing. I think the problem is, I think there's disagreement within East Cambs anyway, and I think East Cambs are very, very certainly the leadership in East Cambs is verbally very opposed to the option A thing as well.
That's true. And actually, we had in the debate, for example, Mark Goldsack, who's in East Cambs, actually putting forward a different view to some of the Lib Dems in East Cambs. So like there was a lot of, I guess, mixed opinions in the debate. You can't say that all East Cambs actually wants option A.
And you can see where that comes from to a certain extent. And this is not how local government review should be decided. And this is the big flaw in the fact that this is happening so fast. And I'm not against it happening fast, but the big flaw is that politics is overriding the interests of the residents. And that's a weird statement because they're all political organisations. But what I mean by that is, as a Lib Dem, if you were in East Cambs, you would want to be part of an option that unites you with South Cambs and City.
Absolutely, and I don't oppose that at all. But what I do oppose is that the Lib Dems and the independents in administration were whipped into voting for option A. Even those who live, you know, in Huntingdonshire, none of whom I don't think would agree with that. None of whose residents, if we had a referendum in Huntingdonshire, and I did do a little poll. I think in the strange county council survey, which only dealt with option A as well, 20% of Huntingdonshire residents said they were in favour of option A, and yet we have almost all of our county councillors, apart from Julie Kerr and the Reform councillor Ricky, what's his name? Sorry, Ricky, I'll find out your name in a minute. Who voted against it? So well
Ricky Ioannidis, Ioannidis from Reform.
Good job from Ricky as well, who did a speech as well, and a fantastic job from Julie Kerr as well. But everybody else, every other one of those Huntingdonshire councillors voted for option A, which is never going to be in our interest, and quite strangely,
it is the Lib Dems.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Stephen, it's the Lib Dems and Tom Sanderson. Like the Tories voted against, and so did I. So basically, everyone else apart from Lib Dems said independent.
The Conservative, obviously the Conservatives voted against, and well done to those guys as well. But yeah, the whole thing I think it's disgraceful, and I genuinely think it's the biggest act of betrayal in local politics I've ever seen. I've been part of that administration. Yeah, if I'd have been chair of county council and they tried to whip me into taking that vote, I would have resigned. There's always that option. Yeah, I would. Yeah. Nobody's ever tried to whip me, like apart from my past. Not in my personal life. I always do that joke. It's probably somebody will clip that one day. But nobody's ever tried, because like if they tried to whip me and I didn't want to vote for it, then
already.
I mean, to be fair, Stephen, that's difficult when you're part of a political party, because you've got so many other things going on, and there's a reality there, which is. You've got, maybe, somebody's dropping hints that you might be in a new cabinet, or you might get a promotion into a committee chair, or you are a committee chair or something. All those things sort of play around the edges.
So
and it does make it difficult.
So I do. Is this working?
Yeah, you're there.
Hello.
I was going to say,
I was trying to find an opportunity to bring you in, David, and say,
I do think that. So, I think. The process the government has chosen is causing problems, and I am really quite concerned about it. That said, there is an issue here about in whose interest are you acting, because you've got what is like for me, in a way, it's easy. When Huntingdon Town Council made no difference, but we put out a position that says if we want to, if it's a choice of being in a Cambridge council or Peterborough council, it makes more sense for us to be with the Cambridge one. But all I have to think about is Huntingdon. If you're actually making the decision, are you making the decision in the best interests of the residents of your ward or your division, the best interests of the residents of the whole council area, or are you trying to come up with the best solution for the whole new area? I mean, it's one of the things I think. Sorry, if Anthony was here, I'd ask him to bring up the picture of what was proposed in Redcliffe Moor, which would be a better starting point. It's not, but the way it's been done, I think, has caused a lot of issues. And I'm afraid, I know the Lib. We're all having a go at the Lib Dems, and I'm not going to defend them. They're not the only party who have been looking at this going, how do we get political advantage out of this?
No, I think the whole thing. I mean, most of these votes, and I will say Huntingdonshire is the exception, and we can talk about the process as far as I know it in Huntingdonshire a bit later if you want to. But I do think that the whole thing is being decided by gerrymandering. Yeah, which is patently ridiculous as well, because as we've seen over our time in politics, these things are very variable. They fluctuate, don't they, backwards and forwards. When I started being a councillor 8 years ago, every single layer of council above me including the mayor, was Conservative, and now none of them are. And so it changes really quickly. And so it's almost silly to try and base an authority which is going to last 50 years or more on the current political climate.
I'm not convinced it will last 50 years for various reasons, and I don't think necessarily that's a bad thing. I just want to stick up a little bit for the process, because I am of the view that local government reform needs to happen. I've been of that mind for a long time. funnily enough, there was a debate on this at the county council when I was leader, and it was brought forward by the UKIP, and it called for a Cambridgeshire unitary, including Peterborough, and I actually voted against it at the time. And I voted against it not because of any whip or anything like that, but because my view had always been that this, the move towards a unitary had to come from the bottom up, because it would go down like a bucket of wet sick if it was forced on them from the top down. But my problem with that is change is never going to happen if you wait for it to happen from the district councils, even though it's needed, in my view. And aligned with that is, if you go through the proper process that they probably went through back in '74 when the last big realignment was done, it would never have happened, because it would have crossed an election campaign, and somewhere during that election campaign, one or two political parties would have said, if you elect us, we'll abandon this. And then you end up again having go through the process of doing something that's needed and politics stopping it. So the government are rushing it through in order to guarantee that it is done before the next election. And I actually, to a certain extent, support that, but I think the speed is causing problems.
So can I come back in on that?
Just to say, the other part of it, though, is I do think that after 5 or 10 years, it would make a lot of sense for the government not to do a massive reorganisation, but whatever government at the time, but just to sit and look at it and say, okay, we rushed this through. What do we do to tweak it now to make it a little more perfect?
So I think there's a few bits I'd like to sort of come back on. You can do it quickly and not do it. And so this is taking time to go through, and I get the desire to do it quickly. It does need doing. There is a thing that there hasn't been, I don't think, much public engagement saying that this is happening. I don't, so a lot of people are going to be really hacked off when they suddenly find, the councils are changing and not understanding why. And I think there's a job of work to do to explain some of the problems that there are in local government, and how we can improve things by changing them. The other thing I think is I think one of the criticisms you can make of the government is that they didn't do enough preparatory work before office. I think that's fair. But for when they came in, this is something where you could have put together a way of doing it more quickly. Now, the Redcliffe Maud didn't actually get used in the '74 elections for the reasons you say, but I think you could have potentially got sign on from the other parties. Now, and bear in mind, this is in a time before email and GIS and all that. It took 3 years, but it wasn't redrawing boundaries. The proposal was to redo the entire system of local government, including sort of setting up provinces and everything. I think government could have said, right, what we want the new unitaries to do is this, and we've got the list already. You go and draw us a map effectively. The other problem is by getting. And I think there is some criticism that can be made here of the county council, which is not wanting to go across boundaries. The government's preference was not to cut across boundaries. That's not what they actually said had to be done. And I think that's going to potentially cause some issues. But I think you're also missing a lot of opportunities. The Newmarket thing, the Newmarket salient. Is one. So I think that even wanting to do this really quickly, there are better ways of doing it. And also, what they ended up coming up with is the effect of it is going to be to make politics and politicians look rubbish.
I don't know about that. I think it'll settle down to government as usual, but with some imperfections in structures, and those imperfections include. The north of Huntingdon, is a great example. where the north of Huntingdonshire rather than Huntingdon, Yaxley and places like that, where it just doesn't make sense. And that's why I would have preferred them to be brave and say, despite the fact that we know it's a nightmare to make it happen, we need to look at splitting some areas.
That came up in debate. Alex mentioned that in debate, didn't it? And there seems to be, everybody seems to be pretending there's really firm guidance that you must.
No, there's not. So first of all, the guidance allows splitting boundaries. Secondly, the three options A, B, and C came out of group leaders, and we have to think who wants what. South Cambridgeshire and city leaders want South Cambs and Cambridge in the same unitary end of, that's option B. So obviously they were pushing for option B in those discussions. There were voices, but voices in the minority that argued for other ways to split boundaries and so on. But obviously you won't get through that kind of like group leaders meeting when you decide on what are the three ones that you want to go, like to progress with business case and so on. If it wasn't the case, you could split boundaries. And why on earth does option D appear out of nowhere from the Peterborough MPs? Obviously you can, and obviously that's considered, that's being studied now. Peterborough City Council will probably pass that one for government. Obviously it can be done, but there's no political will at the beginning when those conversations started, when it ended up with A, B, and C, to actually like put something that splits boundaries, because for various reasons, but it could have been done then. Now it's a bit too late indeed. But to say this in the amendment, they're like, oh, I will blame the Labour government. I can't vote with my residents because I blame the Labour government for the process. Actually putting like an untrue claim in the amendment is just playing politics.
Yeah, can I just pull that comment from Yaxley, from Sally, just to say,
Councillor Sally Howell of Yaxley, yeah. So yeah. She's a district councillor for Yaxley.
Yeah, I as a Whittlesea resident and somebody who was just utterly failed to get elected to Whittlesea, I do get where you're coming from, because I look at the politics of Peterborough and I have to say it causes me some real concern. But it's also true that if you look forward and think about what's best for residents in terms of you travel to work areas and stuff like that, it just logically makes sense that residents in Yaxley, and I lived in Yaxley many years ago, they look to Peterborough for their services. They don't look down to Huntingdon, and so that's why I think it would need to happen. I just want to make another point about Whittlesea and Fenland. One of the things that I found ironic in this, and it reflects my view, not ironic, but it reflects the view that I've expressed through the election campaign about the lack of drive and ambition within Fenland, is you can see Huntingdonshire drawing up their plans for a unitary. Huntingdonshire also being active in talking about the fact that they want to be part of a Cambridge option rather than Peterborough. You've got East Cambs coming out very strongly opposing certain views, and mainly through social media, to be fair, but they are doing it. We've got express views from Cambridge.
Are they cabinet or are they committee in this case?
I can't remember. I think they're committee, they're cabinet. No, it's a committee system, I think. But at least
but for that vote, if they can have a vote through the committee system, they're 50-50, aren't they? I think there's one.
Yeah, they are. It'll be interesting. But there's no voice at all about this from Fenland politicians. Once again, there's just nothing at all.
Steve Tierney in the debate says he didn't want any of the options, and basically should. Well, what did he say? I think he said, "Don't participate," is what he basically said.
Yeah, we can't comply. Do not comply. To be fair, Chris Bowden did say his preference is more like, I think Fennon's preference is more toward option D or option B. So like he kind of like did comment around that, Chris Bowden.
But that's them speaking in a county council debate. There's nothing being driven from Fenland. And this is the option. And part of me thinks that they have had some conversations with the Conservatives in Peterborough, and they sat and looked at the numbers and said, look at all these blue votes we can give Peterborough. We can make Peterborough Peterborough Conservative dominated again. And my concern about that is that if we go in without anything that looks like a local plan, as we merge into Peterborough, if we go in without anything that reflects something like a people strategy like the one they've got in Huntingdon, what we end up with is basically a great big load of lobby fodder for the for Peterborough Conservatives. But Fenland as a location getting eaten alive. And that really bothers me. That's part of my election campaign. That's why I said Fenland need to adopt the flag of the campaign, flag of the Fens, to give itself an identity. It needs to start driving forward a tourism offer and start laying down the law with Anglian Water about the ask that we've got for the reservoir. But none of that's happening, and it really bothers me.
I see that we actually have a saint with us today.
Yes, I select this comment because I think it's very good. So
I'm not reading it out. It's beyond my reading comprehension level.
Good friends, thou speakest wisely indeed, smiley face. With the district elections drawing nigh, the yellow fence perchers have indeed aimed for their foot and found their mark cleanly with this fabled Option A, a choice so ill-judged it could scarce be matched by a bland man steering a cabbage cart into the ooze. I thank thee kindly for thy words of wisdom. 'Tis heartening to know that others see the matter plain as daylight, that the Huntingdonshire's strength lies not in folly, but in fellowship.
Good.
Blatantly written by ChatGPT, but go on.
Almost, yeah. But even so, yeah, very yeah.
So going back to that point David made as well, it's like, as a councillor, it's a good point. Who when we vote for these things, who are we voting for? Yeah, are we voting to support the desires of our residents? Yeah, most of whom haven't given this a massive amount of thought. Yeah, most of whom I like Cambridge. I like shopping in Cambridge. Having a Cambridge postcode, even though we don't have one, is cool. Yeah, I want to be part of Cambridge. Yeah, not demeaning that at all. But Cambridge is obviously a good brand. Yeah, but part of the problem with this is that the unitary authorities that we're supposed to be making have to be economically viable, and this is part of the problem with Huntingdonshire because it is such a growth area. Yeah, where we have Alconbury, we have Witton coming online, we have all the St Neots stuff coming online. That lots of the northern unitaries, including Fenland and Peterborough, aren't viable without Huntingdonshire in them. So that's a good argument for having Huntingdonshire as part of Peterborough and Fenland. Yeah, but that doesn't serve the needs of the people who elect us. And ultimately, yeah, when we go to election, probably in May for some of us, yeah. It's those people are going to be electing us, but us making Peterborough, which is a basket case anyway, and Fenland, which isn't much better financially, yeah, economically viable, yeah, doesn't help the man in the street in St Neots or St Ives or Huntingdon or even Godmanchester, does it? It's
No, you've got to sit and look at when you're doing something like this, and this is where I'm going to put that comment up because I realise I've put it up and put it down very quickly. Part of what you've got to do with this is not look at it, in my view, about what it's going to be like in the first 2 or 3 years or whatever. You've got to look at it as this being a 1 in 25 years process. And from my perspective, that's why I sort of lean towards the Peterborough thing. And but there needs to be a lot. There needs to be a lot more to deal with that, and there needs to be a recognition about. And it's the point that the rep from Peterborough City Council made at this CPCA meeting, where they agreed the local growth plan about rapid transit access from Peterborough to Cambridge, so that you can get from the centre of Peterborough to the centre of Cambridge in half an hour. If you could do something like that and make it connect in the middle. That would be fantastic for Peterborough, and it would give Peterborough a fantastic base to actually drive its own economy forwards as well by effectively riding off the back of Cambridge. It's that sort of stuff we need to think about and what that can mean in 20, 25 years.
And I get that, and I see, and do you know what? Whatever happens, we're gonna have to make the best of it. Yeah, and I work in Peterborough. I quite like it. It's a nice place. But for those of us who live in St Neots, in St Ives and Huntingdon, yeah, whether we like it or not, yeah, our towns are already becoming part of the Cambridge economy. That whole Oxcam Arc stuff, yeah, whether it's alive or it's dead, East West Rail, the new A421, yeah, the busway in St Ives make us, St Ives is basically a commuter town, almost a suburb of Cambridge these days, isn't it? I mean, if I wanted to work in Cambridge, the first place I would choose to live is St Ives because of the busway. St Neots is going to have a direct rail connection of sorts, well, from Tempsford at least, into Cambridge as well, and a new fast road as well. So, like all this development work governed on a national infrastructure projects are dictating that we are part of this arc. We're connected to Cambridge. Our residents will be working in Cambridge. Hopefully there'll be jobs here too. But for us to say suddenly that we have to be part of Peterborough's economy, I'm the only person I know who commutes to Peterborough every day. It's just not a thing. Even there's a direct train line from St Neots to Peterborough. Not many people do it.
Well, what was really fascinating in the debate, I thought, what was really fascinating, Stephen, was how much emphasis the report and the Lib Dems put on people socializing and shopping. So 30-something% in East Cambs towards to Cambridge, but 28% in Huntingdonshire, and that's the figures for the whole Huntingdonshire. And obviously, if you're more in the north of Huntingdonshire, you might go to Peterborough because it's closer, and that's like overall 28%. And that doesn't make a case for Cambridge, but obviously 30-something% in East Cambs makes a strong case, without even mentioning the travel to work area, which is the main driver for economic growth and development, and how the local plan is impacted and so on, and the jobs that exist. So the lack of attention or discussion around travel to work patterns in Huntingdonshire in the debate, for me, that's why I mentioned in my speech as well. It's fine, of course, you have to to look at where people shop and socialize and where they spend their free time, but equally, if you're considering that, you surely have to look at the travel to work patterns and where the jobs are and where commuting for work takes place.
Absolutely. I'm just going to stick this up because I think this is relevant as well. There's a lot of people making a case that this is going to cost money. There's been some analysis done in Leicestershire about the impact of their proposals, which are quite controversial because they propose bringing Rutland in, who are vigorously defending their status as a unitary, smallest unitary in the country. But their analysis is saying that in Leicestershire, they reckon that LGR might save them £44 million a year. That's not to be sniffed at when you think about the finances of local government.
If you can realise them, though, because when Alex and I first started at the county, they were still trying to disentangle themselves from Peterborough, which had been going on for 50 years. Can I just say hello to Kerry, whose comment you just had on? Kerry asked me a question at the last district council meeting. It was the hardest question I've ever been asked. I think I did an all right job of answering it, but she got a round of applause for her question, and she was incredibly brave. And I think when we go back to doing a regular coffee, buses and politics, I want to talk about that question, because she was asking about having being a care leaver being a recognised characteristic for district councils. It was a brilliant question, something we need to do more about, but we'll talk about that another time. But just say hi to Kerry, and she tested me quite badly at the last district council meeting, and I've never seen anybody else get a round of applause at a district council meeting before. So
did you get a round of applause for your reply?
Absolutely not. No.
Well, you must try harder next time.
Yeah.
If I can pick up on that, I think there's Kerry. The other point there is about how with our pressing issues. Goes back to the point. I think the government nationally needs to explain, and not in this will save us some money. You could easily do something about the duplication that goes on, etc., and why this is a good idea.
Yeah, but can you? Because you would have to force it. So I'll give you an example. A few years ago, to be fair, not within the current administration at Fenland, so I'm not bashing them. I was making noises about the stupidity of this system where you have one council responsible for collecting rubbish and another council responsible for disposing of it. There's one council disposing of it in Ireland at the moment, but that's another matter. But there is and so that there are these sort of waste alliances that some organisations have put together, so that you've got one body responsible for both. And Fenland had the option of joining one, and just absolutely not doing it. We don't work with other councils. Effectively, was or other councils in Cambridgeshire was sort of the response, and it's something that should have happened ages ago. And that's the problem, that there's this sort of mentality amongst a lot of people where even though they'll save money, even though it's clearly more efficient, they won't do it because they're isolationists.
They've also jacked in working on the local plan as well, haven't they? Whereas Huntingdonshire, we're kind of powering forward to try and get our local plan as our legacy for LGR.
I made a point about this in my election campaign. It's our local plan is an absolute disaster in Fenland. We have our local plan that goes back to 2014, right? And you think that Huntingdonshire are basically, they're going out to consultation on the second local plan since then. And similar, I think South Cambs and City are going out, the Greater Cambridge plan. I think that's being put out to consultation next week as well. And they're in a similar position. And we've then also got this stupid 249 home windfall policy, which gives us no control over where development's going to happen.
But I'm talking as a Huntingdonshire councillor, yeah, that's a sort of politics we're going to be buying ourselves into in the new administration, isn't it? Because Fenland, the person whose seat you were contesting described them as clowns with crayons, which I still think is a brilliant description. Yeah. I'm not sure how fair it is because I'm not that involved in Fenland politics. But like we see scandal after scandal, yeah, in Peterborough. Yeah, we see scandal in Fenland or resignations and accusations of bullying. Yeah, you get none of those things in Huntingdonshire. You get South Cambs, the old 4-day week is quite controversial. But like the politics of the southern part of the county are much more stable and much more adult than you seem to see in the north. And so, considering standing as perhaps a candidate for the new unitaries, it makes me think: do I want to be part of that? Or do I want to be part of the solution? Maybe, I don't know, but it's difficult, isn't it? And that kind of bad behaviour, that different changing culture, makes me very, very fearful.
There is, of course, the possibility that sorry, I've just been to the gym and I'm a bit dopey at the minute, that it will go the other way, but also that there might be a bit more scrutiny and you'll get people from the same party but other parts of the area saying, what on earth are you doing?
I'm just going to put this comment from Paul up. I'll probably have a look at this sometime, so that's why I'll put it up so I can have a look back at it sometime.
Are you on TikTok, Martin? Are you surprised?
No, it's been posted on the comments. But also I'm going to click this link up. I think the best thing to do is go to the Cambs Times and look for Muppet Show. But this is one of our other councillors basically has labelled Whittlesey Town Council meetings as resembling a Muppet Show, and that's Eamon Dorling, by the way, is another independent councillor and all-round top bloke. And that's his thing. And so these comments aren't coming in isolation. And part of the problem we've got, sorry, I'm changing topics slightly, but part of the comment, the problem we've got is a lot of these people that are voting Conservative have never been to a meeting at all. And that's typical of everywhere, and that's not a criticism of them, but I'm pretty convinced that if they went to a few, they'd change their minds.
Which is why part of the reason we do this podcast is to try and bring local politics into everyday people's life. And
so Cam is a friend of mine. Hey Cam, if that's the TikTok, I think it is really good, and it's absolutely worth watching. The one where they're going around basically all of them, looking at sort of briefly explaining what's going on, and I think it, yeah.
From what I've seen, I don't know if Cam could comment on this, but it's pretty much the same everywhere. It's the counties I've seen quite a few. They're basically big spats about what the best option is. A lot of them driven by the numbers of councillors they'll have at the end of it and political balance. But it's very, very similar. So I will have a look at that then, definitely.
I find it so disheartening that this is how, everywhere this is how it's going on. I do my best to try and say, to sort of I don't know if this sounds overly grand, but stand up for politics. And my God, it's hard to do when this is this kind of stuff
Yeah,
happens.
it is incredibly frustrating, I think. And as you said, David, is not only obviously discussing here the Lib Dems, but it's not only the Lib Dems, like across the country, different parties like do the same kind of strategies. And what's really frustrating, like what I said at the beginning of my speech, literally everyone like would have been like retired from politics, like, in 10 years time, whatever. Probably I'll be like one of the fewer people like still being at the end of this local government reform, like in 30 years time or whenever Martin says it'll change again. So like what we're thinking about, like people who are like maybe like many of them on their last term or like second to last term, and they will retire from politics at that point and actually making party political decisions, or people who won't even like, who don't have any chance of like winning their seats again in May, is like, it is not the time to like actually make calculations or what will happen in the next year, because when we have like 5-6 candidates in every election and we have the volatility we have now in politics, everyone could be out like in May. And I'm saying this like in general for all parties. So like it's not the time to make decisions on whether I will keep my seat or not. Like who knows? Like who knows? No one can know.
I absolutely agree, and that's the thing. It's 100%. Every single councillor should be looking at this and saying what is in the best long-term interests of the district in which I live and the district which I serve, and that's not necessarily responding to simply responding to the number of people that are chirping at you over your shoulder, because it's about listening to that voice, but it's like all of politics, actually. It's about listening to that voice, recognizing that it's not necessarily a majority, but balancing that voice against the facts that you get put in front of you and the facts that you find out for yourself.
Can I just put a word in, because we've put the boot into the county council Lib Dems a bit, and I think fairly, but that's not necessarily the case everywhere, and I want to put a word in for Huntingdonshire, where I think of probably alone of all of the districts, that we're trying to do things the right way, and so the way that we're making decisions, so we've sponsored business cases for 2 options, option C, which is Hunts plus South Cambs plus Cambridge City, which is almost the mirror image of the option A the county council have adopted, but with Huntingdonshire replacing East Cambs, and option E, which is a bit late to the table, which is Huntingdonshire as its own unitary. And so we're sponsoring both those business cases, and what all of us have said is we're not going to make our decisions until we've seen all the data. And the decision is ultimately a cabinet decision, because we've got a cabinet system where we can't change that. But we're going to have a full council meeting where we're going to discuss it, and the full council will have its chance to have its say. And there won't be any whipping. Well, certainly not from the administration in that vote, or certainly not across the whole administration anyway. I can't talk for individual parties, but I don't think there'll be any whipping. And also, before that, we're going to have a specially convened overview and scrutiny committee. Where overview and scrutiny are going to look at it and give us their recommendations. So as much as possible, we're going to try and make that decision involving everybody. And that process, our leader is a Lib Dem, Sarah Conboy. I've got colleagues on the cabinet, who are completely, not interested in gerrymandering, completely interested in doing what's best for Huntingdonshire long term. And I think actually as well across the council. So Ross Martin, who's the leader of the Conservatives, who also did a brilliant speech at County Council, is also interested in doing the right thing. So I think that across that council, we're not playing party politics, and we're trying to make the best decision. Well, whether we're doing it the right way or not, we'll find out. But I think our intentions are pure.
But that's the best way with scrutiny, to actually get a majority genuinely supporting something if people feel they're involved. Like basically what really annoyed me at County Council, not only we didn't, we could have used the committee system for scrutiny, like they decided not to. We could have had like some pre-meetings or something, we decided not to. We could have had at least our concerns not like completely dismissed as if we're stupid in opposition. Like, we haven't. What we have is like we show up, we have a last minute amendment, obviously being like blatantly anti-Labour government. Like, does anyone expect me as a Labour councillor to come to a consensus and say like, yes, I would like to put option A on the table just for consideration after like you completely like have this anti-Labour amendment just to please your internal divisions in the party? Obviously not. Like, this is like obviously a very political way to do things, and that's fine from their side because they have the votes to have a majority. But if you actually want consensus and want at least some of the opposition supporting you, that's the way to like piss off everyone, basically. No business case, no scrutiny before, no conversations before, just like obviously kind of the internal whip plus a last minute amendment that you can't like amend the amendment without negating the amendment anyway, that basically said it's all Labour's government fault, and like, look, we're caught up in this difficult situation, we can't vote with our residents because we have to vote with the whip. I mean, come on, be serious.
And what's really upset me this week is that the St Neots councillors who are involved in voting for option A, have basically said, oh, we weren't voting in favour of option A, we were just voting to keep it on the table.
Yeah, that was the argument.
Utterly dishonest. None of the press releases from County Council say that. Lucy Nessinger's press release and her video afterwards don't say that. And no government minister is going to sit in reading those papers and saying, oh, the County Council didn't really vote for option A as its preference. They only voted to keep it on the table. It's utterly disingenuous, and I've never been quite so well. I've been annoyed about lots of things, but at the moment, it's the thing I'm most annoyed about. And I genuinely think, well, we'll see in May, but I think that some of those councillors have severely damaged their political reputations in and around St Neots. But we'll see.
Yeah, I was just trying to look at something. Sorry, go on, David.
No, it is very unfortunate that that option was sent through on a party line. That no one who wasn't, in terms of
no, there was one independent vote.
That independent is also part of the administration as well, unbeknownst to anybody else. You look on the website; it's now the Liberal Democrat and Independent administration. So that independent was also whipped into the vote, and Julie, the other independent, voted against the whip. So,
but the point that I think you've all made is the right one. I don't think anybody would have complained about option A coming to the table at the county council if there had been a process before that, as an example, which had gone through and genuinely, used proper political scrutiny, whether it was through a committee or a scrutiny committee, of the options, so that it came to it sensibly, informed by political thoughts and reason, rather than just the administration have decided it's option A. Here we go.
I think all the comms before as well were really annoying, and that's kind of like obviously people like already go angry into the debate because all the comms and like the Capal conference as well, like some of the parish councils did feedback to me how before in the comms the survey only on option A, everything was presented as like the county council prefers option A, when it's not. It is the Lib Dem political administration prefers option A. That's why they did the survey only on option A. That's why they put forward the paper only on option A, without the business case on option A, without scrutiny on option A, and so on. Just say it how it is, and it's fine to be honest from the beginning. But I was literally getting questions from residents, like that's before the debate, saying, why do you support option A? Because I heard every single press release, the events were saying the county councillors prefer this, and all of us in opposition were like, wait a second, we haven't even had the debate, we haven't even seen the data, like how can we put us all under the same category of supporting option A? So obviously when it came to debate, everyone was already very frustrated by how the process was conducted. It was very difficult to have any sensible arguments around it. Anyway, that's my view of it.
Yeah, I think what Kerry says sort of reflects that as well, and that's exactly where I am. This is part of the reason why I would prefer a move to PR as well, because I think you'd get much better debate and much more honest debate rather than the sort of stuff we're getting, because politicians would have to learn to work with each other.
I mean, this is possibly going off topic, but you see, I don't know, this is maybe overreading things, in Wales where you get Plaid who position themselves to the left of Labour, and Reform doing very well. Just reminds me of Ireland, where the moderate parties, the SDLP and the UUP, have just don't exist. PASOKification, if you like, but it's happening in lots of places where the mainstream parties, if you like, have just collapsed, have not been able to I don't know, move with the times. I don't know. And that's dangerous. I mean, they've got no God-given right to live forever. But
I agree. The only thing I would say about, from my interpretation of that result, and this is changing topic, but a little bit, but my interpretation of that result in Wales was it wasn't people necessarily abandoning Labour. It was people wanting an option that was going to keep Reform UK out. And they felt that Plaid was the only one that was able to do it. And that's my reading of it. And all the guff that there's been in the media today, about what this means for the Labour administration and everything else. Like every other administration, midterm, you lose by-elections and you lose them badly. That's what happened. Something that happens in every single political administration.
They've also got the second biggest majority in the history of Westminster, haven't they? So they can afford to lose it.
But I think there's an issue in Wales where I think now the Labour administration needs at least one person from another party to support them to get a budget through. The thing is, my uncle Greg, so Caerphilly is just outside of Cardiff. My uncle Greg was the leader of the Labour group on Cardiff City Council for some years. There was I was chatting to him. There was absolutely some tactical voting. There was also quite a lot of we don't want to, go away, basically.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean that. Yeah, I think. Yeah, okay. I mean that's fair, but I just I just the main thing is for me, midterm by-election, government lost. No story here really. But that's totally separate. But let's try and get this back on topic, shall we?
Yeah, sorry, that was me hijacking things.
You started it, and then I just took it a whole new level that way. That's fine.
We'll do a separate session on tactical voting and electoral. We actually had a motion, apart from LGR, we had 5 motions at County Council, and one of them from Councillor Ian Manning from the Lib Dems was on the voting system, votes at 16, alternative votes, and residence-based voting rights. So we had a bit of a debate around that. So maybe we should do a session on.
I think Ross, the Conservative leader at district and at county now, also made quite a moving speech on mental health as well, didn't he? And he talked about his own mental health, which I haven't watched back yet, and I promised him I will. But I will. But well done to Ross as well for talking about that. And being honest about mental health. Because I think
are we allowed to? Am I allowed to quickly talk about the CPCA decision on? I think it was Wednesday.
You can do what you want because I've got to go and pick my son up from bed.
Okay, well, yeah.
Very carry on without me, but I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for Alex as well. Alex looks brilliant at King's Cross Station. Your picture quality is amazing. I think you should do that all the time.
Yeah, if only the Wi-Fi was a bit better, I have to use my phone for it.
Next time, can you go to Peterborough though? Because it'd be more fun. I'm going to have to go to everyone. So catch you later. Thank you for listening.
See you later.
The only thing I wanted to say, and then it probably makes sense. We've been an hour, we'll probably wrap up. We've got over 150 people, 147 people watching as well at the moment. But the CPCA made the decision to adopt the local growth plan on Wednesday, and I watched that, and it was really, really interesting. It was a single item agenda, basically, an extraordinary meeting of the CPCA board. And I take my hat off to Paul Bristow, who actually managed to get that through, given everything that Nick went through in the past with, with some of the politics and everything else. He managed to get that through with, I think, Bridget Smith, leader of South Cambs, abstained because she didn't like the fact that light rail got a mention in it. And I thought that was a bit odd, to be fair.
That is strange.
I've a lot of time for Bridget, but I felt she got that a little bit wrong, to be honest. But everybody else voted in favour of it, and I know a lot of the work for the growth plan was done during Nick's time in office as well. But Paul has done a good job to do what he said what he would do, which is try and work across party. And I just thought that was worth mentioning because. It was good. I mentioned earlier on before you two joined the dreadful contribution that Fenland made to that debate. The leader of, not the leader, the Peterborough City Council rep talked more about Fenland than the leader of Fenland did. I thought it was awful, but apart from that, I take my hat off to Paul. I think he's done a good job with it. It's a good document as well.
Well, I definitely have to watch that, and maybe you should do like a next live stream on CPCA decisions, because I know there are a few like potentially controversial things coming up on transport. So maybe another transport-related live stream.
Yeah, and we've also within the CPCA realm as well. We've also got Paul putting together a regional spatial strategy of some sort as well, isn't he? Which I know he mentioned the other day, which I think they're talking about giving mayors powers to call in and overturn decisions in the same way that Sadiq Khan has as well. So it's we've got all that coming up as well. So it might be worth having a look at the CPCA sometime.
Yeah, definitely. And the whole Mill Road controversy, I've seen it recently, well, in the news today. David, any final thoughts on LGR? Because I have to get my train back in a minute as well.
I hope this works, and I think even with all the problems, it will still be worth it, because I think unitarization is a good idea. I think it is being done, let's say, suboptimally, and that I find very frustrating. And I'll leave it there.
Yeah,
I'll just end by saying if the short-term political calculations will be left out of it, the process would have been much better, much more pleasant for everyone. Yeah. And I say this about all sides, it's not only a criticism to the Lib Dems, although that's what I experienced this week.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that, and I think we've probably got more of it to come, unfortunately, as well. Well, cheers all. That was I really enjoyed that. It was great.
Yeah, same. Thank you. Have a good evening, all.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Cheers.
Right, I need the loop.
We're still live.
All right, okay. Apparently we're still live.